Right, Sunday morning, we'll do a bit of a walk around, nothing specific, just have a look at the, I say damage, we've already looked at the damage that's happened in the freeze we had in December, but we've just had another, 5 nights of frosts, so we can see that the grass here is still a bit frosty, but as soon as we hit into the sun area where the sun's hitting us, that's totally dispersed. So again, we've got the arid shelter here, and we know with the aeoniums in there, they're lost all their flower type foliage. But the Braya armata is looking pretty good. A couple of brown tips on the older fronds, but yes, I don't expect that to take any damage. You know, it's pretty dry in there and sheltered. And yeah, we can see the variegated Americana agave, yes, looking good. See some more of the more tender succulents showing signs of damage, but I'm sure they'll all pull through. Even the pot specimens there looking okay. So we have got some sort of delayed damage on these yuccas. So this is the yucca jewel, which is a really nice lightly variegated sort of light green leaf, and this is the first time I've had damage on this, but in the previous winters I have had the arid shelter sort of come right to the side of the greenhouse here, but due to the fact that this yucca at the back here has got some tall over the last season excuse me, I couldn't continue the shelter all the way across, so we have got some cold damage on that. This happens that, you know, we've hit a winter where we've got some real cold temperatures and they will take damage. They're not going to look pristine like other winters past, but there you go, that's not going to kill them. They will recover from that. We're just going to have some nasty looking foliage, that's all. Right, so interestingly, coming around here, so we've got this little Washingtonia robusta in a pot here, which really I bought, I think I paid about £8 for, and there's actually four little palms in that pot, and to be fair, a potted specimen just underneath the overhang of the arid shelter, and that is, well, taken no damage at all from the cold we've had. We did have some brown tips on that already before the cold, and even the very smallest one, we've got a leaf that's collapsed on the very smallest palm there, but apart from that, they still look nice and green. So yeah, again, I always say it, but just a little bit of overhead protection can make all the difference. So let's have a look. Incidentally, I did move these, obviously yesterday when I was on the video before this, when I talked about cutting a hole in the front of this old raised pond, and so I had to move these seed grown cord lines, and these pots have frozen through solid, and you know, thawed and frosted, and they're still looking pretty good. We've got the odd sort of brown tip on these, but these are, you know, seed grown from my own larger plant down the bottom of the garden, and yeah, they've proved to be pretty hardy. And like I say, these pots have frozen through solid, and yet very young plants, and pretty much unscathed, so that's interesting. But again, that's seed grown in the environment rather than sort of imported plants, which may not be quite as tough. But I did notice when I was moving these pots, I forgot that, you know, I bought some Waggies, Trechiocarpus wagnerianus, a few years back, and I knew I got them at a good price, but I couldn't remember how much I paid for them. I think this is maybe 5 years ago, so this is going to show you how much the prices have gone up. So these are the pots I bought, $4.95, and they were nice little palms with a good couple of inches of trunk. So I'm guessing if you try to buy them now, you could quadruple that at least. And coincidentally, these are the palms now, which are in the ground. So prices have gone up steadily over the last few years, whether that's due to the popularity of the sort of tropical style garden, or whether it's just inflation in general. But yeah, you used to be able to get plants at a good price, but now you have to look a bit harder. Anyway, so I've sort of done a video on the plants in this area a few weeks ago. Nothing's really changed. Obviously we have got, or we're now coming out with another cold spell, which we had the 2 weeks in December, and now we've just had nearly a week again of frosty nights. We did get the lowest where I am was about -3, so still quite a nasty, still lower than we've had in the last few years, so that's not good. And again, a lot of damage won't actually appear on some palms till later on, but in general most things are looking pretty good still. So other than the Washingtonia robusta, which we've already looked at. But let's have a closer look at the newest palm, which is underneath the shelter here. So this is the Boutea odorata, which I got from Seagraves Nursery. So I think this turned up, was it late September. Got it straight in the ground. Obviously first year, first winter, we done this shelter because we weren't sure on the hardiness, but to be fair, I'm really impressed with this palm. Looking really good, nice green, even with the cold spells we've had. Really quite impressed with that. Still looking as good as the day it arrived. Well, it's looking better than the day it arrived, because I had some yellow spears in the centre which are all greened up. But even the stuff outside the shelter, so we can see the shelter finishes here, so we've left some fronds out to see if it would take any damage, and at the moment it hasn't. Still looking really good. Right, so I will just mention, obviously we said that we had another frost last night. That was probably about -2.5, but the sun's out again today. I mean, we had a really nice sunny day yesterday. It was officially about 7 degrees, but it felt a lot warmer in the sun, and today officially it's only 2 or 3 degrees. But again, I've got a dark fleece on, and the sun on my back is just feels really warm, so that's quite pleasant. So again, already weakened plants from the frosts in December. This cordeline's not looking good, so we've just had the centre spears sort of collapse to the side a bit. The base itself still feels solid, so I'm not going to give up on that one. That's been through a lot, so that's been moved a couple of times, and I think I've gone through the story on that one. So that's a wait and see situation. Cordyline superstar. So a lot of the centre foliage sort of lost all its colour. Some of the older leaves, where they're sort of protected from the other leaves, are still looking reasonably good. I believe this will pull through. This will grow out of it. And we all know with cordylines, even if you do sort of lose the head, quite often that'll reshoot from where they sort of died back, where if you've got a bit of trunk on it, that will regrow from the live part of the trunk. If not, that'll regrow from the ground. So that's something to consider, but I certainly wouldn't be removing any foliage yet. And exactly the same with the Washingtonian Robusta. Doesn't matter how rough it looks, that's staying as it is, because these burnt off leaves now will protect any plants underneath and help protect the crowns of the actual trunks of the palms. So we're not going to be doing anything with them anytime soon. That is going to be left as is until temperatures warm up and we start seeing some growth from the centre spears. Then I'll cut back, and even then we can see where maybe you've got a half and half leaf where it's half sort of burnt off and half green, and even to this extent where most of it is browned off but we've still got a bit of green. I will cut it just around to leave the green on, just to give as much photosynthesis as possible, to give it as much energy to regrow. So centre bed we know about, and most of the palms are pretty hardy in here. We have got a fleece still over the sago palm, so I'm going to remove that now because it's a nice sunny day and it's fairly warm. So this was green at the start of December, and with them frosts it's lost a lot of colour in the leaves. It's still losing colour, so they will all eventually die off to that. We can already see that will flush out again next year. The base is solid. I can see there's a little bit of moisture build up there, so what we don't want to do is leave that covered over for too long, because that, if you've got water in the crown, obviously freezing and thawing process, that will kill the growing point and mush out. So we're gonna, where we can on the nice days like this, we'll open it up and hopefully let that any moisture sort of burn off in the sun. Again, one that I'm pretty sure is dead, but I'm gonna give it every chance, is the Brahea Edulis. And I've got to be careful because I've been known to spout out the wrong names here and there, just because when you're doing a video you sort of always got one half of your brain going to the next subject, so sometimes you sort of don't think about what you're actually saying at the time, and I've been caught out a few times saying the wrong names for things, and just I should correct myself, but I've not even known I've said the wrong name. So anyway, yeah, so we had the spear pull on that. So after that freeze in December, that looked okay at the time, and literally because we had the mild temperatures up again until now, I think about 2 weeks after, they're all browned off. I mean, these fronds were all totally green at the time, even the spear was green, and within a week that gone from nice green to this browned off, and you know, just give the spear a tug and it comes straight out. So we did get a bit of hydrogen peroxide straight in the crown. I haven't put any more in since, especially now it's sort of cold and damp. But when it does get a bit mild again, I will chuck just a little bit. I'm talking about just literally just a teaspoon amount, just to, you don't want any liquid sitting in that cavity. You just want enough to get in there and burn off any dead or dying foliage. I'll just kill back any, you'll see it bubbling and fizzing, and if you've got too much in there, you obviously don't want a pool of liquid in there which is going to freeze overnight. So we're not going to do anything more to that while it's cold. But again, all the other palms are absolutely fine. Even the, well, Jabrea there, very small, still little bit of browning on one of the leaves, but nothing to be concerned about at all. And again, a very small Butea odorata there, that's been out for 4 years in from a very small strap leaf, and that's absolutely fine. So probably the most tender palm and the hardest to get hold of at the moment for me is this Paragebaya Trellii. So it's not necessarily the hardiest Paragebaya, but it is the most damp tolerant. It is in a raised bed, so this is raised a foot, just with log edging. Well, you can see this time of year the mulch is sort of rotted back, and I have insulated this with sort of foam insulation all the way around as well, so that is insulated, but it's got good drainage. The older fronds have browned. They have taken that damage, and especially the ones that are outside of the overhead protection have browned off. We can see it's a bit greener inside, but so this has taken damage. I mean, these are old leaves anyway, but we can see that there's a cluster of maybe 3 or 4 leaves in the process of pushing out, this being the biggest, and they're still totally green. So that really is the indicator plant, if you like. Expensive and rare indicator plant, but even so, that is in the middle of the garden, sort of pretty exposed. So that's probably going to get the coolest of the temperatures, and yeah, so hopefully that'll pull through no problem. Well, I say no problem, it's got damage, so there is a problem, but that's going to live. And like I say, just with this protection, that's the day like this, that does warm up in there, and I'll give it every fighting chance to pull through any cold damage. Right, so let's work our way back to the Phoenix canariensis. So we know this can be a borderline palm in most of the country, or a lot of the country anyway. And last few years this has gone through with no damage at all. Didn't have any damage on this since 2018, Beast from the East, but yeah, it has taken damage this time with these two. We're now in the second of the Arctic blast that should be coming to an end hopefully next day or two, but we have taken damage. So looking at some of these higher up fronds, we can see that the ends have browned slightly. Some fronds are showing up more than others. So we've got some of the newer ones there. I ain't gonna be able to get close to it, this is far too high for me to reach. But we can see they're sort of drooping down and looking a bit brown, so that has taken damage. But again, not concerned whatsoever that will pull through, because I think it's at a size now where it'd have to be something really drastic for that to die. And plus the positioning, I mean, when I planted this, I had no knowledge of the plants, weren't really into the tropical garden at this time. I just knew I liked the plant, so it's just pure luck that's happened to be in this corner, which is the hot spot in the garden, which gets the sun all day in the winter, and any frosts burn off straight away as soon as you get the sun hit it. And it is really quite a nice little hot spot. So the trunk itself, if we can get in, it's quite a substantial trunk on this now, so I think that'd take a heck of a lot to damage the actual growing point. And how thick with new foliage that is there, I think that we'd be looking at -7 or 8 before that would be a concern, or whether you might experience spear pull. You know, with a plant this size, that'd have to be something quite drastic. So I'd say -7 or 8, and I'd be a bit more concerned, but we certainly didn't get anywhere near that. The last freeze, or this one. I know inland, I say inland, I mean it's still in my region, so I'm in Suffolk, but sort of coastal, but just I'm going to use Thetford for an example. So Santon Downham in Thetford always gets in the summer gets the hottest temperatures, but also in the winter gets the coldest. And I think that was down to sort of -7 in this period. I know, I mean, it's just giving an example, just an hour's drive away, and that's a total different ball game. So that's just something to consider. But yeah, rambling again. So that's okay. Obviously the big cord lines are never really going to be an issue with. I've had these for 10 years plus in the ground, and we've had the occasional head die on them, but in general they're big enough and established enough. And I know for a fact that nearly every garden along here in some form or other, I'm going to go in the sun here, but there's cord lines all along my area. Nearly every house has got cord lines. It's quite a common plant, and you know, fairly hardy for where we are. So the biggest tree ferns, that's still looking quite nice, again thanks to the canopy of the cord lines. But yeah, some brown tips on some of these, but in general the leaves are still pretty green, so that's doing well. I've still got fleecing at the moment until we get totally clear of this cold patch, and that fleece will come out. But yeah, most of the stuff around this area is looking pretty good. So we have got a lot of Chamaerops humilis, fairly small plants. So we're dotted all the way along here. They're all looking really good. They're never a problem. They don't even really get that much sun this time of year, but just do it again for the overhead canopy definitely helps. So yeah, everything's looking pretty good along here until we get to, well, we've got a Trachycarpus fortunei there, which is a fairly small one, but that's been putting on decent growth. We've got a Waggy there, which is, you know, obviously not a concern. But yes, then we've got another Cordline Superstar. So this one, unfortunately this time of year doesn't get a lot of sun. So even though we've got one the other side of the garden, which is probably half the size of this, the smaller one's looking better because it's getting more sun. So where this one took the freeze damage, but probably didn't fall out so quick during the day, if at all. So where the other one we just looked at had a colour in some of the lower leaves, this one not at all. There is still some colour right in the centre. I'm just hoping this one pulled through. The centre spear actually still seems pretty solid, even though it's lost all its colour. But we'll see on that account. But interestingly, we did do a little experiment with a little Cordline fruticosa or tea plant, which are indoor, quite tropical plants. And yeah, the leaves have lost a bit of colour, but that hasn't collapsed. So that'll be interesting to see if that pull through. No protection other than just a cloche over the top, plastic cloche. We know the Schefflera is doing okay. That's still covered over with literally just a plastic bag on a old frame. But again, important to have that air gap at the bottom for air exchange, and didn't want to get too damp in there. So we've got a good couple of inches at the bottom, which is open. So when you know the wind blow through there, that will give it a bit of air exchange, and that seems to be doing the trick on that one. Small tree fern, totally browned off. Yeah, some of the fatties are not looking too good. We have got damage on the camouflage fatsia here. Leaves not looking too sorry for themselves, they're not hanging down too much, considering we had sort of minus, I don't know, -2.5, -3 last night. Right, so we'll finish up at the one of my other newer palms, which I bought last year. So this one was end of May, June time I got this one, and again that was a potted specimen. Weren't sure how hardy that was going to be, so on a air of caution we put a just some top shelter and a bit of side shelter, but again, plenty of airflow through that, and looking pretty good again. Pleased with that, looking really good. In fact, this centre spear at the start of winter was totally closed, and it has even started to open up slightly, so it's still all but very slowly it's pushing out. So yeah, and this one is again just a Bootea odorata, but it is quite a different form to the other one, where the other one is a lot more sort of compact. The leaves are denser, it's got more of an open form, so it's quite nice. The leaves are a really nice colour, and yeah, we've got maybe the slightest bit of brown and tips on the bits that are sticking out of the shelter, but in general still very impressed with how this is coped with the cold temperatures we've had. So that just tells me next year I won't need to bother about protecting this particular plant unless we get something ridiculous happen. But again, that could just be a case of temporary run out here. If we got any badly frosty nights, you run out and just wrap some fleece around the trunk or something, but in general I think the two palms I was most concerned about were my two new ones which I've brought, and they're the ones that have proven to be the least stress, just due to the fact that I've not seen any sort of concern and damage on them. It's very slight brown tips on some of the leaves. This is an old leaf anyway. I think it probably had a little bit of spotting on it, so yeah, it might have got a little bit worse, but again, old leaf, not concerned. All the new stuff's looking really good. So in general, it's just a little walk around, just a bit of a update. I might just call this a garden tour really for January, because I weren't really intent to go through the whole garden, but the way things have gone, that's the way it's panned out. So we've got another tree fern here, still got the fleece in there. Again, as soon as the frosty nights go, that'll be removed. So we have started seeing some I know spring is a long way off, but the stuff we normally see come up in spring has already started to pop up, and so we have had a mild, really unseasonably mild, between the two cold snaps we've had, and yeah, so let's finish up here, because this is one plant that you really ain't got to worry about too much. A very small specimen, but the Aucubus japonica, nice spotted leaf. That's quite a nice colour. So we've got some really nice yellow and light green on a dark green background foliage. That's going to be a nice plant when it gets a bit bigger. Right, I think we will leave it there before we go on too long. A couple of small Trachycarpus there. There's actually a double, there's a small one at the side and a bigger one there, and again no concern there. There's actually a leaf there which is frozen to the actual leaf of the palm, and even with that, that's not even going to damage the leaves. Right, we'll leave it there. It's quite a nice bright sunny day. Nice to be out in the garden. Nice to have a bit of sun. Thanks for watching.